Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to give an update on a couple of trees that I haven't shown in a while, simply showing you how they're doing health-wise, if there's new growth. Also a little bit talk about the plans I have for these trees. And I would start with this Ficus Ginseng here. It is an upright Ficus Ginseng. It's probably the one that I have in my collection that is the most straight up growing, so it doesn't really have, it has this bulbous roots, but it doesn't have them twisted and turning like many of those Ficus Ginseng that you can find. That was also the reason why I purchased this one, because it looked so different from the normal Ficus Ginseng that you can get. And it has been potted up in this pot now for roughly, I think, 3 months. So after buying that, that was the first thing I did with this tree, is to repot it into this little bonsai pot. I chose to already pot it in a bonsai pot because I think with these bulbous roots it already has a quite mature look. And unfortunately, with many of those Ficus Ginseng, when you buy them, you will find that they don't really have a well-developed root system. It was also the case with this one. So there is still more space in here for this tree to fill out. There was almost no root system on this tree. I'm always, again, baffled how they actually survive with that little roots, but it also shows you how hardy this variety is. And as you can hopefully also spot on the leaves and on the new growth here, it is doing extremely well in this pot. So I think it has really settled in nicely. It had, of course, when you repotted, a couple of leaves that died back, but that was far from anything that really made me concerned about this tree. I must say this one has kept its health probably the best out of all the trees that I have repotted in the last year. And that also makes me think we probably can start working on this a little bit earlier even. If it continues now, and we are already now after growth season, if it continues to grow like this, we might even start to work a little bit more on this in the cold season now. What could this work look like? You can already see there is wire that I have put on this tree, on most of the branches actually, to spread out the canopy a little bit. Those Ficus Ginseng that are grafted, they often, of course, they grow very upwards. That is just the nature of any tree. And they can be very dense and very compact. And I wanted to spread this out a little bit just to give it a little wider look that also fits, I think, better to the thick base that we have here as well. So that is something, of course, I want to develop further. So if we see that there's a lot of new growth, I will continue to wire this out a little bit, maybe prune back even in cold season. If I can see that it makes sense for the tree to branch out more, then we will also do that. Other than wiring and pruning when we see fit, I think there's not much I would do at the moment. So those structural things I'm really sad about, or really are somewhat sticking out for me right now. I do like the growth pattern. I do like the canopy itself. I like that the graft is on both sides here, so that there's two grafted trees on this Ficus Ginseng base. And I think we can work with that very well in the future. So we'll keep you updated on this, maybe even a little bit earlier than I expected. But as this is growing so well, we might work on this already sooner than I would have thought. And that already brings me to the next tree I wanted to show you today. And this is probably by now the one that I have in my collection the longest. It's also one that I have grown myself from just a plant shop, Ficus Benjamina, that you can find in any box store, garden center, wherever. That over, by now it's almost 5 years, I think, I started to grow into a bonsai shape and grow as a bonsai. And for the last 3 years, I would say there was not much I did with this tree. I tried to develop some aerial roots. You can see the one that I decided to keep here, for example. I have wired it. You can still see some wire on it right now. And of course, I have let it grow and cut back again to get it a little bit more compact, but also to get the trunk to thicken a little bit better and to improve the taper. The big thing I did last on this tree is actually repot it, and that was really something that was long overdue. I repotted it for the first time in inorganic soil. Before it was always in organic soil still. And when I repotted it, I actually saw that it was about time, because the soil was completely depleted. It started to wash out through the drainage holes. The roots didn't seem too healthy any longer. So it was long overdue actually. And since then, I can see this tree is starting to really benefit from the new soil. There's not that much new growth on it yet. There is signs, especially up here, of new growth happening, and also here on the side branch. This has never been a very fast grower, I must say, especially in relation to all the other Ficus Benjamina that I have. This always has been more of a slow grower, which is fine because it is also steady in the way it's growing. It doesn't suddenly decide to drop half of its leaves or something like that. So it is quite predictable, I would say, which is good. But nevertheless, I can see growth that hasn't happened for this tree in the entire growth season, to be honest, because the soil simply was no longer fitting, didn't provide the nutrients that it needed to grow. And I think it is starting to slightly bounce back now. I can even see some back budding down here, for example, right from the trunk. So I do think it was definitely the right decision to repot this. It still probably needs some time to settle in. It's not a tree I would continue to work on right away now. Working, I mean really adjusting the tree by pruning, by cutting off part to improve the taper, repotting, something like that I wouldn't do, of course, right now. When it comes to wiring, maybe removing the wire after the cold season or applying wire further up here to spread out some of the branches here, that is something I could be doing. But to be honest, I prefer actually to leave this tree a little bit in peace still, just fertilizing it a little bit as I see new growth, trying to encourage that a little bit more, making sure it gets enough sunlight also now in cold season. And next spring, hopefully then seeing a lot of new growth that it used to have nevertheless in growth season. It did grow more in growth season, just last growth season it didn't grow as much any longer, and yeah, the repot definitely should remedy that. But I will keep you updated on this tree, especially then come spring, to see if it is doing well and how it's faring. And let's move on to one more tree I like to show quite a lot lately because it is doing very, very well, and it is really coming along nicely also with the vision I have for it, which is to create a multi-trunk or clump-style bonsai. So there's actually 3 different Ficus Benjamina in here that I'm trying to fuse together. They start, I think, to fuse together. At least I feel like when I move one of them, the other ones are moving more. And it's not just because of the wire. I think they're really starting to grow together. So of course, creating the clump style is the main goal for this tree, so my eyes are on fusing those trees together, but I also really focus on the growth pattern of the foliage, of the branches, and that is probably something I will continue to do also now in the cold season, because it continues to grow. You can see, for example, here new leaves coming, a lot of new leaves here at the top of the center tree here. So all 3 trees show a lot of new growth, and this is really nice about this tree. Every time I prune it back, it just bursts into new growth and bursts into, just such great development on this tree that I feel like I can always work on this tree. It always bounces back right away, or even benefits from me working on this tree. So it's very, very rewarding, I would say, to work on it. So what are the main goals for this tree? I still have this little, somewhat of a gap here where we took out a very parallel growing branch here in the last year that is starting to fill in with those 2 branches here. But of course, we still need to work on it a little bit. I think here we actually, starting to branch out, hopefully a little bit, as I can see. That will fill in this part nice again. And then it's just working on the overall structure of this tree. So pruning back where we see fit to improve ramification. Maybe we even start to clear out certain branches when it gets a little bit too crowded, especially on those side trees here. The middle one is somewhat, I wouldn't call it bare, but somewhat not as dense as those 2 in here, because we took out a main part of it, of course. But I think we can simply balance this out a little bit better still in the future. I wouldn't do it right now in cold season. I want to continue it to grow. And if I see it continues to grow now for at least 1 or 2 months when it really is then cold season, then we continue to work on it maybe. But for now, I don't want to stress it too much. I don't want to stop anything that it's doing right now. If it continues to throw out so much new growth right now, why stunt this by even pruning back all of this new growth that the tree just put energy into creating? So I wouldn't work on it at the moment, but we will work on it definitely in the foreseeable future, because it is such, as I said, a vigorous tree, or 3 vigorous trees that hopefully will become one in the future, that I'm just excited to see where the next steps will take us. I will keep you updated on that. And then probably in 1 to 2 years, we might move from this little plastic pot that, of course, is just a training pot and not really the nicest, into a really nice clay bonsai pot, where we also lift it a little bit to show more of the root base, show a little bit more of the clump style that we have underneath here. And I think that will, again, definitely elevate the look of this tree. But that is still in the future, but something to look forward to for me at least. So 3 trees, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. One that is for a long time in my collection, Then also this one, which has been a project now also already for, I think, roughly 2 years. And then the first one that I showed, the Ficus microcarpa, which is the newest one in my collection for, I think, half a year. 3 different time frames, but all in interesting times in their progression. And yeah, as I said, keep you updated on all of them. If you have any questions about any of these trees, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. If you enjoy my channel, feel free to subscribe to it. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.